Okay, so this is for part 3. We're now going to talk about pleiotropy. When we say pleiotropy, this means that we have several genes, or rather one gene rather, having one more than just one effect on the phenotypic character. So a lot of our genes are actually pleiotropic. So different genes for diseases and qualities can oftentimes affect more than just one aspect of the body. So this means that one gene affects more than one trait. This affects several phenotypes. One example is dwarfism or achondroplasia and gigantism or acromegaly. So for example, here we have a person living with acromegaly. His name is Sultan Hussein. So if you would notice, he needs to use a cane to walk. This is because the gene that's responsible for him being a giant would tend to impact the structure of his bones and his joints, that because they are so extended, they can oftentimes be insufficient to support his whole structure. So the inheritance pattern for achondroplasia, or in this case, dwarfism, is the following. So it's usually via dominant inheritance. So here we have a person living with dwarfism that will live with a person or start a family with a person who is usually not affected. So a non-achondroplasic person. So here we have two people living with the condition and they marry each other and have a family. So let's compare the Punnett square of two individuals. So for this one, for the affected individual marrying a non-affected person, we get the following results. So there's a chance that 50% of their children, there's a 50% chance that their children can have dwarfism. So that's what happens. Some are normal, half of them are normal, half of them have a normal height, half of them will be dwarfs. And then let's check what if two people who have achondroplasia marry with each other. They get this particular genotypic ratio. Now, if there is two dominant alleles, this can actually prove to be fatal for the developing organism. So, mamamatay yung organism. So, this can be lethal. While for this one, they can end up to live, but they suffer from dwarfism, and then there's a 33% chance that one of them is normal. So aside from that, we also have Marfan Syndrome. So the gene that's responsible for Marfan Syndrome can actually cause the following phenotypes: long-limbed, spindly fingers, a caved-in chest, a weakened aorta, and lens dislocation. So all the following. And these are all caused just by one gene encoding for an abnormal protein. So another example for pleiotropy would be if we have an anomaly in creating porphyrin. So if ever you have a disorder called porphyria, or one of the enzymes that you produce is dysfunctional, you can end up having a number of phenotypes expressed within you. And these are usually the bad types of phenotypes. Now we move on to epistasis. So for epistasis, one gene tends to completely mask another gene. What does this mean? We can say that in mice, coat color is controlled by two separate genes. Now, they can have the pigment if they have big C, but they can have the absence of the pigment if it's a small c. If they can have more pigment if they have big B, the big B allele, or less, so they end up being brown for a small allele. While if they get CC, they get albino. No matter what allele, no matter the presence of the B allele, the albino will cancel out all the other expression of pigmentation. So if you can see, there are two genes that will mix together to create the possible pigmentations. But the moment that there are alleles for albino, specifically small c, like homozygous recessive, no matter the presence of the big B's or other B's, they will cancel out the expression, and thus they will always turn out to be albino. And in any case, if they have this particular genotype, they will be black. This one will result in brown, and those are the following there. And then this one will result to albino, which are over there. So instead of in Mendelian, when we speak of Mendelian inheritance, it should be 9:3:1. But here, because the homozygous recessive genes for albino cancels out the others, it becomes this particular ratio. The same can be said for coat color in Labradors. So again, there are two genes that control their coat color, and that oftentimes there's also a concentration of the pigments. So these specific sequences will give out the following colors, and that in any way, yeah, these are the observed phenotypes. So this is just a diagram showing how they can be inherited. The same can be said for coat color pattern in pigeons. Albinism is actually an example of epistasis, how we actually inherit albino genes. So usually it's melanin that controls how pigmented people are, and that it's tyrosine that creates this enzyme that creates melanin. Now, for people who are living with albinism, they do not produce tyrosine. Therefore, they don't produce melanin. Their tyrosine can be non-functional, and thus they do not produce enough melanin. So these are just some people living with albinism. Now, finally, we have polygenic inheritance. When we say polygenic inheritance, this means that there are phenotypes that are determined by more than two genes, or even a multitude of genes. So this results that the phenotype will have a large range of expression. So it's not just like it's not just like a purple flower or a white flower. Like we will have to include the large gradient of white to purple or dark purple. Just like how we have skin color. Diba? Skin color isn't just black or white. Skin color ranges from being absolutely pale to being a little bit fair towards being morena, and eventually towards having darker colors. So the phenotypes serve to be on a continuum. It serves to be on a gradient. A lot of human traits are actually have this particular scheme of inheritance. So skin color, height, weight, intelligence, behaviors. As in terms of height, they're not just tall or short. There are a lot of individuals who have different ranges of height. Some will be 5, 5'1", 5'2", 5'3", 5'4", onwards. So there are specific values that actually encode, or that express these phenotypes. In the same way, eye color will be of different shades. So therefore, it is actually an example of a trait that gets inherited via polygenic inheritance. So that's it for part 3. I hope you were listening, or if you didn't understand, you can always ask me via the Genio forum. Don't be afraid to post or to ask questions. Also, don't forget that you have a worksheet due. That's on 3/17/2020. The submission bin is on Genio, and I hope you can stay up until the 4th part of the video. Okay, stay safe, sanitize, take a bath every day. Bye-bye.